Hey everyone, buckle up, because this is not your typical travel vlog. I didn't go to Paris. I didn't go to Bali. I went somewhere 99.9% of people have never even heard of. A place with no Wi-Fi, no Starbucks, no tourist traps. Just raw ocean, sinking villages, and the people who live like time forgot them. And the world forgot them too. I visited Kiribati, the most remote, most disappearing country in the world. And what I found there changed everything. People haven't heard of it. Others don't believe it's real. And even fewer dare to go. But I did. And what I found in Kiribati left me speechless. It all started with a map. I was looking for somewhere truly off-grid. No tourist traps, no Instagram cliches, no Wi-Fi. Just raw earth, real people, and untouched culture. And then I saw it. A strange dotted smudge in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. No cities, no landmarks, no travel vlogs. Just one word, Kiribati. Google had next to nothing. YouTube? A few shaky videos with outdated footage and static audio. And that's when I knew this was it. But getting there? A nightmare. No. Seriously, there's no direct flight from anywhere that makes sense. To even attempt the trip, I had to fly from Los Angeles to Fiji, 10+ hours wait, 2 days for a transfer board. A 3-hour flight on a tiny plane with propellers that looked like they belonged in a museum. Land in a place that looked like it hadn't. Changed in 50 years, welcome to Tarawa, the capital of Kiribati. I stepped off the plane and it felt like I'd arrived in another world. The air was thick with salt and silence. No terminals, no taxis, no chaos. Just a handful of locals watching us, barefoot in the sand near the runway. That was the arrival hall. The humidity hit me first. Then the realization, this is the WWII. This is the real edge of the world. Island time isn't a joke. Here everything runs slow here. Not vacation slow. I mean glacial. My hotel was less of a hotel and more of a cluster of metal-roofed huts with fans that only worked when the power wasn't out, which was often. My bathroom had a bucket shower. No hot water, no mirror. And I loved it. No notifications, no digital noise. Just waves and wind, and the occasional rooster. I didn't realize how addicted I was to modern life until I had to go a full 48 hours. With no signal, no data, no distractions. And for the first time in years, I looked around instead of down. The people of Kiribati, let me tell you something no one will prepare you for. The kindness here will wreck you. Everyone greets you. Everyone smiles. Kids run alongside you barefoot and wave like you're royalty. No one asks for anything. No one tries to sell you souvenirs. They just want to know your name, where you're from, why you came. One older man sat with me under a coconut tree and said, "People don't come to Kiribati. You must be looking for something." And I was. I just didn't know what yet. The landscape, beautiful, and terrifying. Kiribati is disappearing. Literally, you can walk from the ocean to the lagoon in under 10 minutes in some areas. That's how narrow the islands are. The roads are cracked and sometimes flooded. The beaches are stunning, but also ghostly like paradise with a ticking clock. You hear about climate change, but here, you feel it. Entire villages have already been swallowed by the sea. And yet, the people stay. They sing, they dance, they build. There's a strength here that you won't find on a postcard. A night I'll never forget, that first night. I sat outside my hut. No lights, just stars. The sky in Kiribati is unreal, like someone turned up the contrast on the galaxy. I heard drums in the distance, voices, laughter. I followed the sound through the dark and found a group of teenagers playing music under a palm hut lit with kerosene lanterns. They waved me in, handed me a handmade drum, and I played like I belonged. I didn't speak their language, but I didn't need to, and that was just day one. There are no signs, no GPS, no guides. Just instinct, sunburn, and an old fisherman with a boat that shouldn't still float. I woke up at 6:04 a.m. to the sound of chickens and someone whistling. Outside my window, the sky was still pale, the ocean calm like a held breath. I rolled out of bed, barefoot on cool tile, and remembered what I'd agreed to the night before, a boat trip with a stranger. His name was Tianetti. He didn't speak much English, but he had a smile that instantly disarmed you. His boat? Wooden longboat that looked handmade, and possibly held together by faith alone. No engine, just heart. There was no motor, no life jackets, no map. Tianetti handed me a woven palm frond hat, motioned for me to sit down, and pushed us off the shore. With a long stick, we drifted out into the purest blue I've ever seen, so clear. I could count the sea cucumbers 20 feet below us. I asked where we were going. He pointed at the horizon and said one word, there. Castaway vibes, engaged for nearly an hour. We drifted through open ocean, weaving past sandbars the size of tennis courts. There were no signs of life, no birds, no boats. No sounds except the quiet splash of our paddle and the occasional laugh from Tianetti, who seemed to think this was all hilarious. We landed on a tiny island no wider than a football field. It had 3 trees, 1 hut, and a view that felt stolen from heaven. This is where I was born, he said, touching the sand. I stood in silence. The island of silence, he walked ahead while I filmed in disbelief. I couldn't stop thinking. People don't even know this place exists. Number? Drones. No tourists. No HASHTAGS.TINET. I cracked open 2 coconuts with a rock and handed me one. We drank in silence under the shade of the only tree, as wind danced through the leaves like whispered stories. War ruins and ghost echoes later that day. Back on the main island, I visited something unexpected. Japanese World War II bunkers left untouched. Concrete towers now covered in moss. Bullet holes, rusty ladders leading into darkness. It was eerie, like the war never really ended here. It just faded into silence. Locals don't talk about it, but you feel it. The memory that never left. One wall had a carved name in kanji. I traced it with my fingers and felt something tighten in my chest. So many stories buried in the sand here. The sunburn, the monsoon, and the kindness that night. I was sunburned, drenched from a sudden monsoon, and completely lost on foot, my translator gone, my battery dead. I wandered down a flooded alley, feet in ankle-deep water, when a woman stepped out of her hut and just smiled. She led me in, dried my clothes, and made me tea without asking a thing. Her daughter braided my wet hair while we watched the rain. No one spoke. No one needed to. The warmth in that hut hit harder than any resort welcome I've ever had. The realization this trip wasn't about content. It wasn't about adventure. It was about learning how to be human again. Stripped of screens, stripped of schedules, I was just a person with a backpack. In a place most people never think about, and it changed everything. Some countries survive, others thrive. Kiribati endures. That night, I chose to sleep outside. No air conditioning. No mattress, just a woven mat on the sand. A thin cotton sheet, and the whisper of the ocean just meters away. I lay on my back, gazing at a sky so full of stars it looked pixelated. In Kiribati, there's no light pollution, no highways, no cities humming in the background, just space, stillness, and the feeling that you are finally, undeniably small. The ocean is a wall and a clock in the dark. You hear it? The ocean doesn't crash here. It rises. You can feel it breathing, creeping higher each year, taking inches with every storm. Locals talk about it with a strange calm. This beach was wider when I was a boy, one man said to me. Now, entire coconut trees stand in the surf, their roots exposed like bones. There's no evacuation plan, no panic, just faith, and the daily act of rebuilding, the school with no electricity the next day. I visited a local school, no screens, no Wi-Fi, no smartboards. The children sat cross-legged on palm mats, holding notebooks made from recycled paper. A hand-drawn alphabet lined the walls. The teacher used a stick as a pointer and chalk that broke mid-sentence. And yet, I've never seen kids more alive, more attentive, more joyful. They recited poems about the ocean. They sang songs about rain and wind and fish. One boy stood and read a story he'd written by candlelight. It hit me then. Education here isn't digital, it's ancestral. The child who changed me after class, a little girl named Lita, tugged on my hand. "You cry?" she asked. I must have looked surprised. "No." "Why, your eyes are wet." I didn't even realize she led me outside and gave me a shell, a perfectly round white seashell, and said, "Keep this. It hears the sea when I'm not there." I still carry it. A funeral for a house that afternoon. I witnessed something I'll never forget. An entire wooden house, waterlogged and collapsing, was pulled apart by a dozen men. Not because it was old, but because the tide had reached its foundation. Salt water had soaked the floorboards. The house had to die so the family could live. They burned what they couldn't salvage. And then they danced. Not in celebration, but in resistance. They sang a song about ancestors and survival and sky spirits. I watched with a lump in my throat as they turned grief into rhythm. The power of not escaping many of us travelers. Digital nomads, content creators, we chase freedom. But here in Kiribati, people are choosing rootedness, not because they can't leave, but because they love too deeply to go. They don't run from the ocean. They learn to breathe with it. There are places where life feels fragile. And then there's Kiribati, where life is a miracle and it dances anyway. A wedding that floated. They invited me by accident. Or maybe fate had better timing. I was filming the lagoon when I heard drums, not the kind you hear in performances, but heartbeat drums. Deep, slow, ancient dot. A local woman nudged me and said, "Wedding, you come." I followed her through coconut trees across a narrow plank bridge built over shallow seawater. And there it was, a wedding pavilion built on stilts, floating just above the tide, decorated with banana leaves, dried fish garlands, and colorful fabrics. The bride wore no shoes. Her dress was sewn from flower petals and shimmering seagrass. The groom had a crown of shells and painted symbols on his chest. The ceremony, it was not what you'd expect. No rings, no aisle, no vows. Instead, they circled each other 3 times, poured fresh coconut milk into the water below, and then looked to the sky in silence. Someone whispered, "They're not promising each other, they're promising the ocean." And then the drums started again. The whole crowd danced barefoot on the wet wood platform as the tide slowly rose around them. It was chaotic, spiritual, alive. I've been to weddings in castles, on yachts, in cities with flower walls. But this was marriage at the edge of the earth. The storm later that evening, I sat near the shoreline editing footage when I noticed the wind had changed. Fast, cold, sharp. Locals started pulling boats in, tying things down. I was still filming when it hit. The monsoon came in like a punch. Rain sideways, thunder rolling in waves. Palms bent like paper. It ran with my gear. Slipped, hit the sand, and before I knew it, my tripod was flying into the ocean. Gone, I froze. Not from fear, but from awe. This storm wasn't angry. It was alive. It moved like it knew the island by heart. The WWII must-have looked helpless because a boy no older than 10 dove into the surf. No hesitation, and minutes later came back with my tripod and a grin like he'd just beaten Poseidon himself. I asked his name. He said, Teco. I gave him my only dry snack bar in return. He ate half and gave the rest to his younger sister. And just like that, another lesson in generosity. Here, even kids don't hoard. They share what little they have like it's gold. A night with no roof, my hut's roof was half gone. The storm had peeled back the palm fronds like paper, so I joined the neighbors, 12 people under one tarp. Huddled together on the ground, laughing, singing, passing around dried breadfruit and stories. No one complained, not once. Instead, someone said, the storm sings too. You just have to listen. What is strength? Back home, we talk about resilience like it's grit. But here, resilience is joy. It's dancing barefoot in rising tides. It's rebuilding. Every week with a smile. It's children laughing during lightning strikes. Kiribati doesn't just survive, it teaches you how to live when everything is temporary. You never really leave Kiribati. It stays in your skin, your breath, your dreams. The last morning I woke up before the sun, not from an alarm, but because of the silence. No roosters, no drums, no wind, just a stillness that only comes before a big goodbye. I sat on the beach, knees pulled to my chest, watching a sky slowly blush from black to deep blue to soft fire orange. The tide was rising again. As always, I could feel it pulling something out of me, even before I left. Lita and the Shalaz, I packed my things into my dusty old backpack. Lita, the little girl with the braids, ran up to me barefoot. She was holding something. It was a shell. It's the same one she gave me on day 3. But this time, she had drawn something inside it. A little sun, a heart, and my name. Now it listens to you, she whispered. And you remember us? I knelt, hugged her tightly, and told her something I hadn't said to anyone yet. You've changed how I see the world. She smiled like she already knew. The airport that isn't really an airport, there's no departure lounge in Kiribati. Just a patch of concrete that smells like coconuts and motor oil, with a tin roof shade and a chalkboard listing the flight number in shaky handwriting. The plane, a tiny, roaring creature, landed like a dragonfly on water. I stood in line with 6 other people. No passport scanners. No boarding gates. Just a man with a clipboard who looked at me and said, "You, the one from YouTube." I laughed. "Maybe." He smiled. "Good. They say you told the truth." That was all I needed. The takeoff as the plane lifted into the sky. I pressed my forehead against the window and refused to blink. I watched the island grow smaller, the waves grow bigger, and the people, the stories, stay rooted below. The pilot turned slightly, and the sun caught the ocean at just the right angle. The water looked like melted gold. In that moment, I knew something was different. I wasn't flying away from Kiribati. I was flying with it. Inside me. 3 weeks later, I walked into a loud cafe in New York. People stared at their phones. No one said hello. Everyone moved fast, faster than I remembered. I reached into my coat pocket and found the shell. I held it's my ear. There was no ocean in it, but there was a memory of drums, of barefoot kids, of people who smile with their whole face, of a place that never asked to be seen, but still showed me everything. You can't book a flight to meaning. You can't capture depth with a drone. And you definitely can't understand a place like Kiribati through a screen. You have to go. You have to feel the sand where houses once stood. You have to let the sea scare you, then soften you. You have to sleep under stars that don't care if you're an influencer or invisible. Kiribati doesn't give you content, it gives you clarity, and that's more valuable than any likes. Thank you for coming with me. If this place touched you even a little, share it. Talk about it. Protect it, because if the world forgets Kiribati, we lose more than a country, we lose a heartbeat. I went there thinking I'd create content. But Kiribati created me. If this story made you feel something, even for a second, remember, not all beauty shouts. Some of it sinks quietly beneath the sea while the world scrolls past. So like, comment, share it forward. Not for me. For the people who taught me that home isn't a place, it's how you love it before it disappears. Until the next wild. Forgotten corner of the earth, stay kind, stay curious, and don't forget to listen to the ocean inside the shell.